any of our deciduous leaves, if you look at a leaf, it takes a lot of engineering to build a leaf. And if our deciduous trees, like maple trees and Saskatoon bushes and rose, even rose bushes and whatnot, if they just started making their leaves this spring, they wouldn't have time by fall. So next year's leaves actually grew last summer.
Right, yeah.
But they're just in a bud phase.
Yeah.
And to protect, as winter comes, to protect the babies from our harsh, dry, cold Alberta air, they generate a shellac or rosiny coating, and some of those are medicinal. So in the case of Populus balsamifera, or balsam poplar, or the mature trees crack and the bark turns black at the bottom. On a rainy day, they literally look black bark, hence the name. They have this reddish colored rosin on them, and once it's there, on a warm day in really full-on sun, the rosin might even start to melt a little bit and drip to the tip of the buds.
Yeah.
And you find them like that. And so on a warm enough spring day, you can pick them, but they're so sticky, it's hard to get them in the bag, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I like days that are around 4 to 6 degrees, no wind, just so you can work bare hands. And if you know you're going out to pick balsam buds, I would take some, cheapest thing to take would be rubbing alcohol.
Right.
Just so you can clean your fingers when you're done. Otherwise, I'm worried about maybe ruining the fission on the finish on a leather steering wheel.
Right.
You got all this gooey stuff on your fingers.
Yeah.
So clean them with alcohol. In a pinch, I've always got first aid kits with me, and I would use something like tea tree oil or whatever that would work. Yeah. But cheaper to use rubbing alcohol. So, and if you get home and you don't have time to keep working on this project, just throw them in the freezer, and they can stay there for 2 years if you want. And the way I like to do it is to put a double boiler of any nature would work, but then you got all this rosiny goo.
Yeah.
And I like to usually just dedicate a jar, and I might use it for more than one batch.
Yeah.
So fill a jar with the buds, and a proper ratio is 2 or 3 to 1. So typically, if you kind of fill a jar at least a third full, and then when you add I use organic olive oil. When you add the oil, just visually, there'll be the buds and then the oil.
Right.
And then we put that jar in an appropriately sized pot. And if you don't have a trivet that fits to protect the glass from the heat, depending on how thick the bottom on your pot is, you can just use a cloth too, like a face cloth or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And just so you don't shock the glass.
Yeah.
And I typically, you don't want to deep fry them. I typically bring the water up to where it's just about going to boil, and then cut the heat back, and just let them sit there warming in that oil all afternoon.
Yeah.
And then if you're going to use it right away, you just have to strain them off. And again, if you're going to use a tea strainer, you're going to have all this rosin on them, so you might need a brush with some alcohol. Do you do it different? That's how I do it.
Yeah, basically, yeah, same.
And you can use that oil just as it is. Mm-hmm. It's got a lot of methyl salicylates in it and benzoic acid, so it smells very vanilla-ish. Mm-hmm. Very beautiful smell.
Yeah.
And you could use it straight up just as the oil, or what we typically do is mix it. I usually go about 2 to 1 with beeswax.
Yeah.
And then when it cools, you've got a really nice salve.